Hi everybody, we're here for our next connection video. This is our video to connect to our farming, food, and agriculture sort of chapter. I'm here with Heather Marie Bloom. She's going to introduce herself in just a second. We're hanging out, we're having some tea, and we're just going to have a chat so you guys can meet an actual farmer. I know some of you know farmers, you're from rural areas, so you know some, but we're going to talk about Heather Marie's experience. And she is my farmer, which is what I really like about this interview all the time, is that she is my CSA farmer, and so I've been to her farm and she provides vegetables for me, but we'll get into all that in a little bit. So could you introduce yourself to us, please? Name, whatever job title, and employer.
Okay. My name is Heather Marie Bloom, and I am the farmer, the only farmer. The farmer, the intern, the marketer, all of those things, the banker, for Rising Phoenix Community Farm.
Perfect.
Currently, as it has just moved, in Wright, Minnesota, so near Cromwell, Floodwood area.
Okay, so a little
southwest
of Duluth. Okay, great, thank you. Could you let us know what you do at work, or since you're the only person, maybe what Rising Phoenix Community Farm is trying to do as a farm?
Well, first, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture.
Yep.
And it, and maybe you've talked about this a little bit.
We will.
Okay. Yes. So CSA started kind of on either coast and have slowly, gradually made it into the Midwest.
Okay.
And a CSA is a farming model that gives farmers money up front rather than at the end, because many times there's a crop failure and then that farmer got nothing.
Yeah.
So this way the farmer gets money up front for infrastructure, for whatever is needed, seeds, equipment, everything, before the season. So, but it's a shared risk.
Yep.
And so I'm very clear with members at the beginning of the season, like, we could have a total failure. We could have an awesome year.
Yeah.
There's a wide range of outcomes.
Yeah.
But that's the shared risk. That's the investment. So it's a very high risk investment. So that's a CSA. So I have shares, and I offer 16 weeks worth of locally, organically raised produce.
Okay.
And then so that starts kind of at the end of June and goes into October. But my season starts way before that. Like, I've been ordering seeds, and in
March.
Yeah, yep. So it's March. Ordering seeds, thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds. And like last night, I was trying to figure out, I mean, this is just what I have to wrap my brain around, is how many seeds I need to plant for 1,200 feet of carrots.
Yeah, interesting math.
Yeah, it is interesting math, and sometimes my brain has a hard time wrapping around it. But luckily, catalogs have a lot of that help in there, so that's super helpful. And sometimes I way over order and left with all this extra seed. So, and then I start seeds in April. Okay. And I have a small greenhouse, and that's heated, and it's just plastic, so it's like a garage size plastic building. Okay. And then all of my seeds get started in there. Okay. And then hopefully by May, June, everything starts going out in the field.
Great. Fantastic. So as a concrete example for you, I'm one of the shares. My husband and I do a share, and I wrote Heather Marie a check for our share 10 minutes ago. Yep. For the whole summer. So I have just given her my money, recognizing that hopefully I'm going to get vegetables, but if I don't, that's fine, because I'm supporting the idea of a CSA. Right. And that's what, the type of farming that I just want to support. So as a concrete example for you guys watching. Yeah. Great. Thank you for running us through that. Could you briefly let us know how you came to this position? How did you come to starting Rising Phoenix Community Farm? I know it's a long story. Yeah. Because I've heard it before, but if we can keep it briefish, that'd be great. But so these guys have a flavor of that.
Yeah. So I have 2 teaching degrees, and planned on teaching, was super excited about teaching, especially with the second one. Yeah. And was living in Duluth and had a share at a CSA farm. Okay. I also had friends who had a community, an intentional community, so we called them communes in the past. Oh, sure, yes. But it was a bunch of people living on a farm, kind of working together. Yeah. So a couple of those influences kind of made me realize that I wanted kind of being out in the country, growing my own food, but then how do I make that a job? Yeah. And so, through interning and taking a farm beginnings class through the local chapter of Sustainable Farming Association. Yep. took a class and interned and then just kind of dove in.
Okay.
The unique thing about my farm is that I don't own land. Okay. And so I'm kind of a gypsy farmer. And I have a tiny house, little house on wheels.
Yeah.
And it moves with me from farm to farm. And so I just recently moved, and so I will be starting all over again with this new place.
Okay.
So
great. Mm-hmm. And it would be great to interview Heather Marie just about her tiny house and put that in our urbanization chapter and how people are living differently. We didn't have time for that, but just so you know, that's another connection to last week's information. Okay, thank you. So moving back to what you do, I know you kind of walked us through like a season.
Right.
You know, in those different seasons or just throughout, what different branches of science, or I know we talked about math briefly for carrots to order, you know, what branches of science do you use for work?
Yeah. Well, I actually just met with the man who I interned with.
Okay, yeah.
To go over all the soil data.
Okay.
So I had my field tested, soil tested high altar.
Sorry, that's my dog under the table.
And so you use this probe that goes down into the soil, and we tested the field, which is almost an acre and a half, and then we tested where the greenhouse, so the high tunnel is going to go. Yeah. And so all that data comes back and looks like Chinese to me because I don't have any idea. Okay. I know what some of the numbers mean. Yeah, yeah. And so there's a bunch of different equations to go through. Okay. And it's a balance of not only kind of feeding individual crops, but then even just maintaining soil health.
Okay. And so are you thinking of like nutrients and water content, or like what's going into that?
So it's nutrients, so it's like potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, like all of those things. Okay. So it's going to be a trick with my field. I have already actually too much calcium in the soil. Okay. And so how I then amend, so how I kind of help the soil.
Sorry.
I have to keep that in mind. I don't want to add any more calcium. Okay. So, but I want to make sure to cover all those other.
Hello? Just a second. Okay. Hey, we're back. Sorry, my dog walker came. All right. So we were in the middle of talking about soil. Yep. Too much calcium. Right. And other things, other sciences that you use.
Well, but it's also kind of making sure that their systems are all kind of working together. So, but I'm also thinking about long term. So it's not just planting for one season and I'm done. It's how to keep that soil going for years to come. Okay. And then if I'm done, how do I leave it? Okay. And then I'm also thinking about bees and other, butterflies and things.
Pollinators.
Pollinators. So, like I've already got a part of my field where I'm going to put in flowers. So I'm going to make sure to put some perennials and annuals. Okay. And then water, I'm using an old well and so, I should probably get that tested and make sure that that's okay. And then how much water to use and kind of monitoring that kind of stuff too. So,
just because I know this shows up in our chapter, how much do you think about erosion?
I do think about it.
Okay.
And this field hasn't been planted on in a long time, so it's going to be interesting. Okay. But it isn't completely flat. So I do have to think about, okay, where is this little rise going to go? There was also, because this was hayed for a long time, and they dumped potash there. Okay. And so just a nutrient thing. Yeah. But it's made this funny little slick of potash residue. Oh, and so now I have to kind of think about how to deal with that. Yeah. Should I not plant anything there, or so I can use cover crops. Yeah. So cover crops kind of put nutrients back in. Yep. And so I think about that kind of stuff, and even though I'm not organic, I'm not certified organic, I do try to stick with organic standards. Right. Right.
Great. Well, thank you. So using a lot of biology, a little bit of chemistry in there, and even some geology. With
and weather. Climate is huge. Yeah. I watch my weather app like a crazy person. Yeah. But we also have talked with other farmers too about how the climate is changing. Sure. And how our seasons are starting earlier and going later, how the bugs aren't getting killed that used to get killed. Okay. The year that we had the flood was also this huge year of a bug that we hadn't had before. And it devastated a lot of people. Okay. And so, there's a little bit of everything, and we some of it we have to kind of learn and talk to other farmers south of us. So it's a little bit of everything.
Interesting. Yeah. So climate change, affecting like how you're thinking about entomology and how bugs and pests and pesticides, which ones are you going to use or not use.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Great. Okay, you've already sort of started to hit on this, but I'll actually ask it. We talked a lot about the science. How do you use other fields? This is a very environmental science is very interdisciplinary. So as a farmer, what topics or people or other skills do you use for
well, I think people just think farmers are always out in the field, and that's like a fraction of it for sure.
Okay.
I mean, right now, I mean, even yesterday, I mean, was seed ordering, but it was not only seed catalogs, it was looking online, and it was doing research and looking at what other people have said.
Okay.
But I spend a lot of my time online and a lot of my time emailing people, which is something I never thought I would be doing so much of. But, you know, sometimes I do a market, and so I'm selling one-on-one to people. So I'm talking about food, I'm talking about, you know, what I grow. So being able to communicate to that people, being able to explain why this thing is $5 and it's $1 at Super One.
Sure.
That they're buying it directly from me, and so there's a cost difference there, but it's also a value item.
Right.
And just like social media, I'm not a super social media person, but I've had to learn how to do that in order just to get my name out there. And also I've talked with the media a couple times, newspaper and radio. So, you know, if maybe there was more of me, one person could do those things and I could just do this, but I've had to learn to kind of do a bunch of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bookkeeping and some of those things I'm not great
at.
Budgeting, yep. I pay someone to do my taxes. It's beyond being able to kind of do myself. So it takes a whole lot of us to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So this class is required of all UWS students, or at least the environmental science requirement is. So do you think it's important for citizens of the world to be environmentally literate or understand environmental science? And if you do, why? Or if you don't, why not? Or maybe what does that mean to you? What would be a big takeaway for students?
To me, environmental science is just how everything is connected.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you might not think it's a big deal that if your gas can knocks over and runs down your driveway. Like, I think they even used to say, like, if you've got old gas, to just, like, let it run down your driveway.
Go down the drain, yeah.
But, you know, how that affects then gets into our water. And so it's bigger than that. And then going to the grocery store, like, I could buy asparagus right now because it's super cheap and it looks so delicious. But where did that asparagus come from? I would rather, I mean, I know there's also an argument about organic versus not organic. I'd rather buy something that's local, might not be totally organic, but it's coming from a shorter distance than something coming from New Zealand.
Yeah, those food miles are so much shorter that the carbon released in that might offset any pesticides used. But it's just, it's how our decisions, whether it's decisions with what we buy or how we vote, or just whether or not to recycle, it's all those little decisions that we make, and it can get overwhelming, but even just some of those decisions, what we make, then affects all these other things. Sure.
So, like, for example, I don't know the number, but by us as a country buying in apples from other countries, we have wiped out so many varieties of apples that we used to have in this country. And that's terrible. And now we're down to, like, a dozen.
Yeah.
Like, that's all the apples that we have, and that didn't used to be the case. So, you know, yes, I'm all for international commerce, definitely. But, you know, there's also thinking about those systems and how to
For some things we could be low. Yeah, it's always interesting when I go to the store to buy apples. And it's like, this is from Washington State or New Zealand. And I'm like, I used to work in an apple orchard in Minnesota. Like, that's a whole lot closer. Why aren't we buying those apples there? It's very interesting to start thinking about it that way.
And how it's a shame, too, that at most grocery stores, you can't buy an apple that's from Bayfield, and that's like the biggest apple thing close to us, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a shame because it's been replaced by all these other things. But those apples would probably be more expensive and no one would buy them.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't have a sign there explaining the value versus the cost, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why having a farmer like this CSA model to be able to kind of talk about those things.
Sure, absolutely. So even if you're not in a class, you can still learn about them.
Yep,
cool.
Exactly.
Interesting. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time here. Are there any final thoughts you wanted to share or takeaways about farming or...
I think the face of farming is changing. I think people typically think about an old man with a beer belly and suspenders and his hat riding a tractor, and it's young couples, it's LGBT community, it's single women, it's changing. And I think that's awesome because the actual farms being handed over to the next generation is declining by a lot. And so there's a lot of new generations of farmers that, I mean, I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in the suburbs. So I think what it takes to be a farmer has totally changed.
And I would, even in the last 5 to 10 years.
Very, very different.
Recent change.
Yep. But you don't have to be a farmer.
Here's Alder.
Hi, Alder. You don't have to be a farmer. Just even growing something that you eat regularly. I mean, lettuce is something super simple. Herbs. Those are simple things that you can grow in your backyard that it'd be one less thing to have to buy.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. Or use the farmer's market. Because we have a bunch of really great farmer's markets
around here. And you guys probably have them I know you guys are spread all over. A quick Google search can actually find you a bunch of farmers markets.
I feel like every year there feels like there's one that jumps up that's new. So we have a lot.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry for all the interruptions. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.